Welcome to another Living Well, Living Rich deep dive. So picture your calendar right now.
Oh, I'm already stressed just thinking about it.
Right. It probably looks like a really high-stakes game of Tetris.
Yeah.
Where the blocks are just falling faster and faster, and they're all color-coded to maximize your guilt. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. The dreaded red blocks.
Exactly. You finish a video call at 10.59, you have like a hard stop to grab water, and then you just dive into the next virtual room at 11.0 flat.
Right. Not a second to spare.
Yeah. We are navigating a culture that practically demands time anxiety. Like, it's the price of admission for living well and living rich these days.
It really is. It's like a badge of honor almost.
It is. There is this constant creeping sensation that there are just never quite enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
That you're perpetually, 5 minutes behind schedule, and that life is basically just a relentless series of deadlines you have to survive.
Well, that time scarcity mindset is kind of the defining occupational hazard of the modern adult.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, we are surrounded by more tools to measure our time down to the millisecond than any generation in human history.
Yeah, my smartwatch literally buzzes if I stand still too long.
Right. But despite all these tools, we constantly feel breathless. And the irony is that the more precisely we slice our days into these micromanaged blocks, the faster time actually seems to slip through our fingers.
Wow, yeah, that is so true. Which brings us to the core of today's deep dive. We are looking at a beautifully profound, sort of allegorical book.
Yes.
It's titled The Clock Without Hands by Dr. Shu-Chen Hou. And the mission today isn't to just, hand you another set of time management hacks.
But we have plenty of those already.
Exactly. We aren't looking for a new framework to squeeze 15 more minutes of productivity out of your morning commute.
Please no.
Right. Instead, we are exploring a much more radical solution to this modern stress sickness, which is time liberation.
Time liberation. I love that term because it requires a fundamental shift in cognitive framing.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, we have to stop viewing time as this hostile, depreciating resource that we have to wage war against.
Right.
And we have to start looking at how we can actually liberate ourselves from its psychological grip.
Yeah, and the central paradox of this source material is what makes it so compelling. So, in the book, we're presented with an ancient brass clock with a completely empty, handless face.
Just completely blank.
Completely blank. And somehow, this broken, ostensibly useless object is supposed to teach a highly stressed, overscheduled professional how to reclaim their life.
Which sounds completely counterintuitive to a modern brain.
Right. So we get dropped right into this character, Evelyn Marks' garden, and the contrast to our Tetris block lives is immediate. The text describes the air smelling like jasmine.
Oh, it paints such a vivid picture.
It really does. Oh. Evelyn waters her roses at dawn. She prunes the lavender by dusk. Her life is dictated entirely by the sun and the soil.
Yeah, the natural rhythms.
Exactly. And sitting right in the center of this sensory oasis is that ancient clock with a completely smooth brass face. No hour hand, no minute hand.
And it serves as the visual embodiment of endless, unmeasured time.
Right.
Because if you think about it, for most of human history, that was how we lived. Time was a season. It was a shadow on the ground, a tide.
Yeah, you didn't have a minute hand telling you were late for the harvest.
Exactly. It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution and, the invention of the factory whistle that we started slicing time into uniform purchasable units.
Purchasable units. That's a great way to put it.
And that industrial mindset is perfectly embodied by the main character who walks into Evelyn's garden, Henry Caldwell.
Yes, Henry. Henry is basically all of us on a Tuesday morning.
Yep, pretty much.
He arrives at the garden in a gray suit every single day at precisely 8:15 a.m. He's clutching a briefcase.
Of course he is.
And the text notes that his forehead bears the, quote, lines of deadlines and goals. He walks as if the earth might literally break under the weight of his schedule.
We all know that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Or we know someone who walks like that.
For sure. And his very first interaction with Evelyn sets the entire philosophical conflict in motion. He checks his phone and preemptively announces, I only have 10 minutes.
Which is just such a defensive posture, right?
Yeah, totally.
But Evelyn's response cuts right through that panic. She doesn't rush. She just pats a wooden bench and says, 10 minutes is all that matters.
I love that. But Henry's nervous system, it just won't let him settle.
No, it can't.
He looks at this beautiful handless clock, frowns, and immediately assumes it must be broken.
Because to his hyper-optimized modern brain, A tool that cannot dispense a metric.
Right, like a number to track.
Exactly, a unit to consume. To him, it's entirely useless. It actually offends his sensibilities.
Yeah. Evelyn tells him that the clock's purpose is to remind us we can live without measuring every moment.
Right.
But I've got to say, I kind of want to push back on this a little, because Henry's reaction is incredibly valid.
Sure.
I mean, I look at my own color-coded calendar blocks. If Henry doesn't watch the clock, how does he actually know when to move on to the next task?
That's the big question.
Right. Without measurement, the whole corporate structure just collapses. So is Henry's real problem the physical ticking watch on his wrist? Or is it something else? Like, has he somehow tied his actual fundamental self-worth to a number on a dial?
That is exactly the root of it. And Evelyn pinpoints that exact vulnerability in the story.
Oh, when she touches his wrist.
Yes, she touches his wrist and asks him, do you live to serve the clock, or does the clock exist to serve you?
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy.
Because Henry is suffering precisely because he's entirely tethered to a system of measurement. He has made the fatal, very common error of mistaking the measurement of time for the actual living of time.
Mistaking the measurement for the living.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The ticking watch itself isn't the villain here. The danger is his subconscious belief that his value as a human being is generated strictly by how efficiently he executes tasks within those measured units.
That is such a trap. And, you know, it's one thing to understand Evelyn's philosophy intellectually.
Oh, completely.
You can read that line in the book, nod your head, and be like, yes, I should totally stop serving the clock.
But doing it is another story.
Right. Practicing it, especially when your phone is constantly buzzing with emails, it requires a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
Which is why I love how the story introduces a catalyst for this shift. A 9-year-old child named Lydia.
Lydia is such a great character.
She is. She treats time like a game of hide and seek among the marigolds. One minute she's chasing butterflies, the next she is just watching the bees. She doesn't have an agenda.
Well, children represent the unconditioned human state, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Lydia hasn't yet been indoctrinated into this cult of efficiency. She doesn't view time as a scarce commodity that has to be hoarded or budgeted or spent.
Right.
She experiences time purely as a medium in which she exists.
Yeah. And there's this amazing moment where she walks up to Henry, plucks a petal from a sunflower, hands it to him, and drops this massive piece of wisdom.
Oh, I know the line.
She says, "This flower doesn't hurry. It grows when it's ready."
It's so simple, but so profound.
And Henry actually tries to absorb this. He closes his eyes, he breathes in that jasmine breeze, and for a brief second, he actually feels untethered.
Just for a second, though.
Right. Because the modern sickness is incredibly resilient. Almost immediately, his anxiety about board meetings and reports and flights creeps right back in, and his heart rate spikes again.
Which is, by the way, a remarkably accurate portrayal of mindfulness practice in the real world.
Oh, for sure.
You don't just hear a profound quote from a child in a garden and magically cure a lifetime of conditioned cortisol spikes.
I wish.
Right. The anxiety always attempts to reassert control because the brain views that hypervigilance as a survival mechanism.
Oh, interesting. So it's trying to protect him.
Exactly. Letting down your guard feels physically dangerous to a brain that's been trained on deadlines.
That makes so much sense. I was thinking Henry's rushing is kind of like someone trying to microwave a 5-course gourmet meal.
Oh, what a great analogy.
Right. Like you simply cannot speed up natural organic processes without fundamentally ruining the end result.
You're just going to get a rubbery mess.
Exactly. But again, I have to play devil's advocate here. Evelyn's advice sounds great in a garden when you're 9 years old and your biggest priority is, like, a bumblebee.
Sure.
But Henry has actual flights to catch. He has quarterly reports to file that a board of directors is literally waiting for.
He does.
So how does a busy adult practically apply the unhurried pacing of a sunflower to a rigid, high-stakes corporate lifestyle?
Well, this is where the book is really smart. When Henry panics about those flights and reports, Evelyn doesn't tell him to quit his job.
Right.
She doesn't say, throw your phone in the river and abandon your responsibilities.
Yes, what we usually think of when we hear time liberation.
Well, exactly. That's a common misconception.
Yeah.
Instead, she asks him, what if you let go of one demand?
Just one.
What if you existed in a moment unmarked by the clock? It isn't about detonating your life's structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's about intentionally carving out micro moments that are entirely unmarked.
Just one demand.
Just one. I mean, think about the cascading physiological effect of that.
Okay.
We so often operate at maximum cognitive capacity where every single minute is allocated.
Definitely.
Letting go of the urgency of just one task deciding that, hey, a particular non-urgent email can just wait until tomorrow.
Right.
Or choosing not to optimize your 15-minute commute by squeezing in a phone call. Doing that creates a pressure release valve.
Wow. Yeah. It gives your brain a break.
It gives your sympathetic nervous system a momentary break from relentless measurement. Henry doesn't need to literally become a sunflower.
Right. That'd be weird.
He just needs to experience a 5-minute window without an agenda.
But a release valve still requires intentionality, right? Shifting from the abstract philosophical advice of, slowing down to actually maintaining this mindset in a chaotic, noisy world that requires a physical tool.
Yes, it usually does.
And before Henry leaves the garden, Lydia gives him a gift. It's a smooth stone, painted blue like the sky, covered in tiny white clouds.
The blue stone.
Yeah. She calls it her timekeeper, which holds the stories of her days playing in the dirt, and she tells him, when you look at it, remember to live your story, not your schedule.
Live your story, not your schedule. That really distills the entire thesis of the book down to a single actionable mantra.
It really does. And the transformation that follows is just so vivid. Henry leaves the garden, and for the first time, he doesn't check his watch on the way to the car.
A small but massive victory.
Massive. His physical steps are actually lighter. He goes home, and instead of immediately diving into tomorrow's agenda or opening his laptop, he sets his phone to silent.
Whoa.
He pours a cup of tea, he sits by the window, watches the sunset, and just listens to the distant traffic instead of thinking about tomorrow's meetings.
He's actually present.
Yes. And over the next week, he starts returning to Evelyn's garden, but not rigidly at 8:15 a.m. anymore.
Right. He breaks the pattern.
Sometimes he shows up at noon, sometimes at dusk. He eventually plants a small sapling by the empty clock, and he tells Evelyn he finally sees freedom in that empty brass circle.
And Evelyn observes the physical manifestation of this internal psychological shift.
Yeah, what does she say to him?
She notes his posture, his demeanor, and she tells him, when you carried your briefcase, you carried worry. Now you carry wonder.
Oh, from worry to wonder. I love that. But let's look at the mechanics of this for a second. We use modern pattern interrupts all the time, right?
Sure.
Like snapping a rubber band on your wrist or setting screen time limits to physically gray out the apps on your phone.
Yep. Very common.
Does a physical object, like a simple painted rock from a child, actually possess the psychological power to rewire how a stressed adult perceives something as overwhelming and omnipresent as time?
It absolutely does. And the neuroscience behind physical grounding explains exactly why.
Oh, I'm fascinated. Break that down.
Well, when our minds race into the future, which, by the way, is the definition of anxiety, projecting our consciousness into future deadlines and hypothetical what-ifs.
Right.
When that happens, our default mode network is highly active, and we completely lose touch with our present physical reality.
You're just living in our heads.
Exactly. So a tangible anchor, like that painted stone, serves as a powerful somatosensory interrupt.
Meaning it literally forces the brain out of the abstract and into the physical.
Precisely. When Henry reaches into his pocket and touches that smooth, cool stone during a high-stress board meeting, it forces his brain to process the tactile sensation.
Oh, wow.
You cannot process localized physical sensation and simultaneously spiral into future hypothetical anxieties with the same intensity.
Because the brain can't do both at once.
Exactly. The stone brings his awareness immediately back to his physical body. To his heartbeat, the feeling of the chair he's sitting in. It physically breaks the cycle of mental time travel.
That is incredible.
And I think it suggests that everyone needs their own version of a blue stone.
Right. It doesn't have to be a rock.
No, it could be a specific ring you wear, a textured item on your desk, or even just a deliberate physical action like taking a slow, deep breath whenever your hand touches a specific door handle.
Yeah.
It's just a physical trigger that reminds your nervous system to stand down.
That tangible grounding is just brilliant. And the story ends with this gorgeous, lasting image. The handless clock eventually becomes a gathering place.
It's a beautiful ending.
It is. Even years later, visitors leave their own tokens at its base. Shells, feathers, leaves. The text says it marks the quiet rhythm of lives lived fully.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that Henry's transformation doesn't just come out of nowhere. The DNA of this restorative wisdom is actually deeply rooted in the background of the author herself.
And the context of how a story like this is conceived adds an incredibly rich layer of meaning to the whole thing.
Oh, absolutely.
especially when looking at the contrast between Eastern and Western philosophies of time.
Right. So let's talk about the author, Dr. Shu-Chen Hou. She actually holds a PhD from the University of Bristol.
So she is highly entrenched in Western academic rigor.
Very much so. But this story is deeply inspired by her family heritage. Specifically, a tradition rooted in the Yangsheng herbal pharmacy in Taiwan.
Yeah, I like that.
This was a long-established herbal shop founded by her parents, Mr. Hu Shusan and Mrs. Peng Kai-feng, and they embodied these incredible values of meticulous care, integrity, and a really deep generational respect for the natural pacing of healing.
And the biological reality of an herbal pharmacy serves as a literal living metaphor for the entire book.
It really does. Think about how herbal medicine actually works. By its very nature, it demands time.
You can't rush it.
You can't. You have to let the herbs steep. You have to let them brew. The extraction of those essential healing properties is organic and very gradual.
Yeah.
You cannot force extraction with extreme heat or pressure without destroying the essence of the herb itself. It literally cannot be rushed, no matter how much you yell at it or how many corporate deadlines you set.
And the cognitive dissonance between those Western corporate timelines and Eastern organic healing is stark.
Oh, completely night and day.
Right. Because our modern impulse is to just extract the active ingredient, synthesize it into a pill, and swallow it while we're literally running for a train.
Yeah, the quick fix.
But psychological healing, moving from time anxiety to time liberation, it operates on the timeline of the herbal pharmacy.
I love that.
It requires steeping. It requires a slow, unhurried absorption of wisdom.
And that philosophy of steady, accessible wisdom, it actually carries directly into the publisher of the book, Kokoshungsan Ltd.
Oh, right.
And specifically their Kokoshungsan Kids imprint. Their guiding motto is, knowledge changes destiny, education changes the world.
That's a strong motto.
It is. But their core methodology is what really resonates with our discussion today. They operate on the principle that learning does not need to be complicated, and that small ideas understood clearly can create lasting change.
Which brings up a really fascinating contradiction, I think.
Oh, how so?
Well, in our era of hyper-intellectual, deeply complex, 300-page self-help books filled with elaborate flowcharts and neurohacking frameworks.
Right, the ones that take a month just to read.
Exactly. Why is a simple children's fable about a handless clock often so much more effective at actually changing adult behavior?
That is a great point. Why do you think that is?
It comes down to how the adult brain processes information and threat.
Okay.
When we pick up a complex academic self-help book, we immediately engage our analytical, critical minds.
You're on guard.
Right. We evaluate the methodology, we critique the author's credentials, we look for flaws in the argument. Subconsciously, we put our intellectual defenses up.
Interesting.
But a fable, a simple allegorical story about a quiet garden, an old clock, and a child chasing bees, it completely bypasses those analytical defenses.
It leverages the psychological power of simplicity to just slip right past the guards.
Exactly. We experience what psychologists actually call narrative transportation.
Narrative transportation, I like that.
We drop our guard, which allows the core truth of the story to implant directly into our emotional and behavioral centers.
Wow.
So building on Kokoshungsan's philosophy, complex modern problems like chronic burnout and time anxiety, they rarely require complex solutions.
Because the complexity is part of the problem.
Yes. In fact, complex solutions often exacerbate the issue.
Right.
Because now you have this intricate new productivity framework to learn and execute perfectly, which is, guess what?
Just another deadline.
Just another deadline.
Yeah.
Sometimes stripping away the hands of the clock, removing the overcomplication entirely, and getting back to fundamental organic truths, that is the most direct route to profound personal growth.
That is so true. And because of that, we highly recommend that you visit kokoshungsan.net.
Absolutely.
Go explore more of their learning resources. You can find them right there at kokoshungsan.net. They are uniquely dedicated to bridging that traditional, grounded understanding with modern perspectives.
Making profound knowledge actually simple.
Yes. Simple, accessible, and deeply meaningful for the everyday chaos we all navigate.
It's a really powerful reminder that the most transformative wisdom is rarely the loudest or the most complicated.
So let's bring all of this together.
Let's do it.
We started with Henry Caldwell, a man whose entire existence was defined by the relentless, hostile ticking of a watch, and the heavy weight of a briefcase that was just packed with worry.
A very relatable character.
Very. And we saw him step into Evelyn's jasmine-scented garden, confront a brass clock with no hands, and really grapple with the terrifying idea of untethering his self-worth from his productivity metrics.
Which is hard work.
It is. But through the simple, unhurried wisdom of a child named Lydia and the tangible neurological anchor of a painted blue stone, we watched him fundamentally rewire his perception of time.
Yeah.
He learned to live his story rather than simply execute his schedule.
Because he discovered that human growth, much like the sunflower Lydia handed him, or that sapling he eventually planted, it unfolds in its own time.
Right.
You cannot microwave a sunset, and you cannot force inner peace with a deadline.
You cannot microwave a sunset. That is going to stick with me.
It's a good visual.
It really is. And we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over long after this audio stops playing. Think about your own life right now, your routines, your stress, your constant reflexive checking of the time on your phone.
We all do it.
We do. If the main clock in your life, your heavily blocked digital calendar, your buzzing smartwatch, your arbitrary daily deadlines, if all of that suddenly lost its hands tomorrow, what would the actual natural rhythm of your day look like?
That's a beautiful question.
And what is one single thing you are frantically measuring right now that you could simply choose to stop measuring today?
Identify that one demand and let it go.
The next time you find yourself staring at that calendar, feeling like you are losing that high-stakes game of falling Tetris blocks, remember the empty brass face in Evelyn's garden.
Yeah.
Remember that you do not live to serve the clock. The clock exists to serve you. Take a breath, find your blue stone, and step out of the schedule and back into your story.
In a library lost through the sands of time, mystic halls where the stars align, books whisper tales that long to be told, stories alive with magic so bold. Through crooked aisles kids wandered deep, heard the whispers where the shadows creep. Living words danced on the dusty air, a call to finish what was left bare. Write the words, the endings that shine, set the story straight across the endless spine. Restore the magic, make the chaos no quest stood frozen in the dark. A fox halfway through his sneaky arc. Princess with no crown, just a tearful plea. Kids took the pen to set them all free. Each sentence breathed life into the fading glow. Pages fluttered as the magic flowed. Mystic worlds came alive with glee in the book of eternal mystery. Turn the page where the living roam. Every tale a new hero's home. Order returns with each line complete in a